So the Nintendo Switch 2 just got unveiled about a few days ago, and it has been confusing consumers left and right, and Nintendo doesn't seem like they're making the smart choices right now in terms of pricing and just a lot of the stuff with the Nintendo Switch 2. Welcome back to another video here on the channel, Tech and Gaming Reviews, and Nintendo finally unveiled the Switch 2. It is coming June 5th. I was about to say March there for a second, but it is coming June 5th in just a short couple of months, and it has been like just insane right now. It is like game prices, everything, price for the system itself, and prices for certain things that like you shouldn't have to be paying prices on. It's all over the place with the Switch 2, and it's definitely got a lot of backlash that's currently happening with Nintendo right now. And man, with what we are about to show you, you would have thought Sony was greedy. Oh no. Wait till you see what Nintendo is doing with what we're about to show you. So, yeah, game prices and just prices on other stuff related to the Switch 2 is just all over the place. It's insane right now. So, we're going to take you to this article from Polygon and talk about the Switch 2 and all of that stuff with game prices. So, here's the article. Switch 2 games are breaking the $70 game price barrier. And then it goes on to say, we knew that there was a new Mario Kart coming to the Switch 2, but we didn't expect it to cost this much. After showing off the open world racing game Mario Kart World on Wednesday during its Switch 2 Nintendo Direct showcase, Nintendo reviewed that the game will have a $79.99 price tag. That's new territory for Nintendo, which just 2 years ago made the headlines by charging $70 for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So that is actually odd because Nintendo, yeah, just like right there, they raised game prices 2 years ago on Tears of the Kingdom, and a lot of people said, bro, this ain't like worth the $70 price tag. Like in terms of visuals and whatnot, like don't get me wrong, the Switch 2 specs are really impressive for what they showed at this Nintendo Direct, but they still are not quite, the Switch 2 is not going to be as powerful as a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X. Now sure, it's going to be very close, but it is still not going to be quite up there. And games on those systems, they still charge $70, including, year releases. So that is definitely shocking that Nintendo wanted to do this because, yeah, like their games, I hate to admit it, they don't cost that much to make compared to like developers making games for the Series X and PlayStation 5 where they're getting all sorts of like graphical fidelities that they can work with. Yeah, Nintendo Switch 2 just, it's not. Like their games are not that high end budget. Like they've been rising with budget costs, but they're definitely not quite up there as developers making games for the current gen consoles with the PS5 and Series X, and as well as the new edition PS5 Pro. So we're going to go over to a YouTube content creator that I watched, Dreamcast Guy, and I could not find this screenshot at all. So the only way I was able to pull it up is from his YouTube video. But here are the prices for some of the new games and as well as the Switch 2 console itself. So, if you want to get the original, like you just want the flat out Nintendo Switch 2, it is going to cost you $450. But you want to bundle Mario Kart World to it, it's going to be $4.99. So, here are the game prices. So, couple of these are technically Switch 1 games with Switch 2 upgrades, and he later in the video, we're not going to necessarily play his video or whatnot, but more toward the end of his video here, he does a comparison of showing off the Switch 1 games with the Switch 2 enhancements, and they definitely don't look that much different. So, basically charging to rebuy a game $80, like this one, Kirby the Forgotten Land, and then you of course got freaking there's another game, this Legend of Zelda, I forget what it is. That's also a Switch 1 game, and you have to rebuy it again for $80. Now, some games are going to be $60, like Street Fighter right here, and then you got the new Donkey Kong Bonanza or whatever. That's going to be $70, and then you got some games that aren't going to cost that much, like $40 and whatnot. But you could see it right here in this screenshot, like how game prices are just all over the place. Like, you got a game that's going to cost you $40, couple games are going to cost you $80, couple that's going to cost you $70, and then a couple that's going to cost you $60. Like, yeah, dude, like, Nintendo absolutely screwed up this time with the Nintendo Direct. So, yeah, I don't know how in the world they did this, but right now they did have to cancel pre-orders beginning April 9th in just a few days. Now, because of like what's going on here in the US with tariffs and whatnot, and honestly, that could be as to why the Nintendo Switch 2 prices are pretty darn higher than what we are expecting. Now, $450, I really don't think is that bad of a deal for the specs that you're getting with the Switch 2, but my goodness, the game prices all over the place, and them, just about 2 years after raising game prices to $70 for the games, and then just now all of a sudden like, oh yeah, we're going to charge $80 now and be the first ones up. Nintendo is just absolutely so insanely greedy. They are just so freaking greedy right now. It's insane to think about. So, even though we thought and we've seen rumors and reports that the Switch 2 was going to be $399, which I still think would have been a better price, but $450, I honestly don't think it's such a terrible price, but it's definitely higher than what we expected. But those game prices right there, as you're seeing with Mario Kart World, the Kirby the Forgotten Land, and freaking Donkey Kong Bonanza, like, the prices are just all over the place. Like, you got $60, $70, then $80, and then he also mentioned, and it's been reported too, that a lot of these Switch 2 games don't even have a cartridge on them. You simply are just going to go to a GameStop or a Walmart, buy one of those cases, and it's just going to be a download code in that case. So, at that point, it's just like, why is it even, like, why? It's not even worth it going to a store and just buying a physical copy of a game if you're just going to simply get a digital code. But, here's where things get even more interesting. Apparently, they are going to be $10 more. So you're pretty much going to go to a store to buy a physical copy of game to get a digital code, and basically are going to spend $10 more than buying the digital game on the system itself. That doesn't make any freaking sense. I don't get that. That doesn't make any freaking sense whatsoever. But here's the worst thing that I think about it of it all. Apparently, with Switch 2 enhancements to Switch 1 games, you gotta pay for them. You can't just simply pop in your cartridge or download that version of the game, or download the Switch 1 version, I should say, with the enhancements. Nope. You gotta buy it. We don't care if you own the game. You got to give us more money because you own it. I swear Nintendo is just absolutely stupid. They are the most stupidest company out of Sony. And you thought Sony was greedy? Not with this. It is definitely Nintendo. Nintendo is more greedy than what you can imagine. Like, it is freaking insane. And I am sorry that my webcam's probably blocking Kirby the Forgotten Land at $80 and then Street Fighter or something for $60, but at least you see the other games down below. So I just realized that. But yeah, it's insane. You thought Sony was greedy, but my gosh, Nintendo is much more greedy. But he also said another thing. There is a button that's going to be on the Nintendo Switch 2. Well, you know what? You got to pay for something to use that button. So, yeah, I don't know what the heck is up with Nintendo, but Nintendo is absolutely, like, straight up right now getting so much backlash from consumers right now. And I'm actually thankful, and I hope they actually do something to figure this mess out, because this is ridiculous for the price of games, charging for Switch 1 games to get enhancements on the Switch 2 that you can just literally download a last-gen game on a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X or S system, and you get the extra FPS or extra resolution boost of what that game is enhanced on. Like, literally, you could pop in The Last of Us Part 2 on basically the PlayStation 5. You could pop the PS4 version of The Last of Us Part 2. You don't have to buy the Part 2 remastered on the PS5. You could just literally pop your disc in or download your PS4 version of Last of Us Part 2. And guess what? You still get a 60 FPS smooth frame rate that they, did with a patch for that game way before they re-released it for the PS5. Guess what else? You could do that with last-gen games. Guess what else? Far Cry 5. You can play that game on either a PS5 or Series X and get higher FPS at 60 frames instead of 30. And guess what? It doesn't cost you a single dime. So you could literally just play Xbox One and PS4 games that have enhancements on the PS5 and Series X and don't have to pay a single dime. Like, Nintendo, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is ridiculous, guys. You should not be doing this. This is absolutely ridiculous. And honestly, at this point, I might not even buy a Nintendo Switch 2. At least, not for a while. Until Nintendo fixes this mess of what's going on. But that's going to pretty much wrap it up for this video. So, hope you enjoy the Saying Your Rant about the Nintendo Switch 2. Leave us a comment down in the comment section down below if this also frustrates you with Nintendo's choices of game prices and just prices all over the place, and yet charging you, free upgrades of Switch 2 enhancements to Switch 1 games, and yet not giving you those upgrades for free just by popping in the cartridge or downloading the Switch 1 version of that game to get the enhancement. Just let us know in the comment section down below if how angry you are or what's your frustration about the Switch 2 and what Nintendo has done. I know, I was kind of screwed up saying Nintendo there. But rate, comment, and also subscribe if you're new to the channel. And we will see you in the next one. Peace out.